Welcome everybody to our webinar today. My name is Jeannie Borum. I am part of the corporate team and delighted to host the session for today. Just to give an understanding of what our agenda is, we're going to first give our owners that are part of our panel an opportunity to introduce themselves and share some particulars about their business and their journey with Signworld. And then after that, we're going to turn it over to our participants. Those of you that have joined us, Brian, John, David, and James so far, we're going to give you an opportunity to ask our panel of owners any question that you would like to ask them. They'll each individually answer, so you'll get multiple perspectives. And we'll go in a round robin format. So Brian, you join first. We'll have you pose your first question, and then we'll go on to John, David, James, and we'll keep cycling through as time permits. So think about your questions as we're going through these introductions, because we'll jump right into those as soon as we complete the introductions with the owners. So with that said, Dave Farrell, can we start it off with you? Can you give an introduction to yourself, please?
Sure. I'm Dave Farrow, 303 Sign Company. We're located in Longmont, Colorado, about an hour north of Denver. I've been in the business 4 and almost a half years. We got 2,500 square feet. I've got 3 full-time and 2 part-time employees. My sales projection for 2021 is $750,000. The biggest customer I have is a contract manufacturer for different pharmaceuticals and biotech goods. They just bought a big plant here in town, and we had worked with them before, so we're doing the full rebrand on that. My career before this, I spent 20 years doing software development and really needed to do something that wasn't software development, and I ended up in the sign business.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Dave. Mr. Don Conklin, can you give us an introduction to yourself, please?
At Don Conklin, Pinnacle Custom Signs in Beaufort, Georgia, north of Atlanta. Been doing it for 10 years now. We have 12,375 square feet. We own the building. 18 employees, looks like 3.8 to 3.9 million this year. And some of our largest customers are franchisees that do signage nationally. Provide the signage on a national basis to them.
Wonderful, thank you. John Sunderland, can you give us an introduction to yourself and your business, please?
Sure, I'm John Sunderland. My business is Signature Signs and Graphics. We're in the metropolitan St. Louis area. Just completed my 15th year. Our facility is about 5,500 square feet. Currently have 5 full-time employees and looking for a couple more. 2021 sales projection is probably going to be somewhere around 1.2, 1.3 million. Our biggest customers, we have a tire distributor, a Goodyear tire distributor that is one of our biggest customers, along with our local electric utility company here in the metropolitan St. Louis area. And prior to this, I was in the banking business for almost 30 years. So decided to do something different.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, John. Jack, can you go ahead and introduce yourself, please?
I can. Don, first, what was your background before this? We missed that.
25 years in the telecom industry.
What kind of role?
Operations.
I joined Signworld back in 1995. I came out of the wholesale food distribution business. I started in 1,100 square feet with 1 employee, ended up in 5,000 square feet with staff of 11, doing about 1.3 million in revenue. And then sold that operation to go into a partnership arrangement with Ken. Finished buying him out 7 years ago. I'm now the president owner of Signworld, the corporate office. So when I answer questions today, the question goes more to my experience running an operation. I'll speak from that perspective. Goes more from training and policy. I'll speak from that.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jack. Part of our team today hosting our webinar is Ken Kent, who is our founder of Signworld. Ken, can you go ahead and get an introduction to yourself, please?
Sure. My name is Ken Kent. I started Signworld in Honolulu, Hawaii 33 years ago. I started with my own sign company and ran that for several years. And today we're now up to 362 locations. That happened so fast, so fast. It's been a great ride. It's a wonderful business. No rules, no royalties, small manufacturing business. Go ahead, Jean.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ken. And I agree. I love the shirt. Definitely has the Hawaiian theme there. So that's fantastic. Very good. So let's turn it over to our attendees and give you an opportunity to ask your particular questions. We ask you to keep it to a single question each time. So we will start with Brian. Brian, where are you from? Can you go off mute?
Am I on mute? Can you hear me?
Sure can.
Awesome. Brian Allen, this is very ironic that you have the panel that you have, because Dave, I'm in Louisville, Colorado, Boulder County. So I'd hate to direct all my questions towards you, but I'll probably be listening to you quite a bit. I've been in, corporate America for 30 years, and it's time for me to work for myself. I have a bunch of questions here. I guess my first question would be, what was the impetus to jump into this? Why did you choose Signworld? And then if any of you developed sort of along with that, like a strategic timeline. So do you want to build it up over 4 years, 5 years, sell it? Are you looking at this as a legacy business? What is your kind of strategic thought process around where you want to take this business?
All right, multi-fold question there, but let's go ahead and put it to our owners. Dave, what was the reason you jumped into a sign business, and what are your long-term plans?
Well, after doing software development for a long time, we needed to raise money at the last company I was working at, and I was putting together the business plan and figured I wouldn't invest my own money in that. So I decided it was time to move on. I spoke to what do they call them? Career coaches. And, didn't want to go into fast food and all of that. And we talked to a few people. He says, you want to talk to a sign guy? And I was like, sure. I don't think I could have gone into a conversation with lower expectations. And talked to Jack a few times. And the more I talked to him, the more it was interesting. So that's kind of how I ended up here.
And what are your long-term plans as far as how long do you plan to own the business? Yeah,
my plan is somewhere between 15 and 20 years, and then to sell it and retire. So I'm 4 in, so I'm about 10 to 15 away from making that decision.
Perfect. Thank you, Dave. Don?
Yeah, I didn't want to work for the man or a woman anymore. I was a COO, I was a CFO. I wanted to be the O, so I decided to be the O. Although I started with my wife, so I'm still the junior O, but that's okay. And yes, we had a business plan coming out the gate. We had a 4-year strategic plan, as well as budgets and performas, and a plan completely set up about what we wanted to do. Achieved all those goals. We've been in it for 10 years now. I have a 2-pronged plan. Either one is hand the business off to 2 of my sons who are in the business with me, or to sell the business, depending on whether they want to pick up the reins and run it or whether they want me to sell it. So that's kind of where we're at with it.
Fantastic. Thank you, Don. John?
Yeah, I was with Bank of America, and they kept asking me to move, and I kept saying no. And they finally told me they didn't have a job for me in St. Louis. And so at that time, I decided I wanted to do something different and on my own. Looked at a number of different franchises, quickly determined that that's not what I wanted to do. Was introduced to Signworld, and fairly quickly made the decision that that sounded like a good opportunity and what I wanted to do. And here I am into my 16th year now. And my son-in-law is my right-hand man here. And the plan is for him and my daughter to take it over, and hopefully sooner rather than later, maybe 5 years.
Perfect. Thank you. Jack?
You know, I don't think anybody that's joined Signworld planned to be in the sign business. I think all of us, when our coach introduced Signworld, we kind of looked at it cross-eyed and said, why? But I'd made a list of 35 things that are important for me. Some involved my daily life, some involved the economics, some involved my life around it. And I found as I looked at the other options my coach was trying, all of them got kicked out for multiple reasons, yet Signworld did all 35. It was the no rules, the no royalties, every day different, being able to see the results, being able to involve my kids, being able to involve the community. Just so many different things that made it the perfect fit. I really didn't know what my long-term plan was. I planned on running it for a number of years until Ken came along and said, Jack, I'm looking for a legacy plan for Signworld, the corporate office, and would you be interested? And I found it to be just too enticing to pass on. I miss running my operation, but I totally enjoy doing what I do now.
Love it. 33 years ago, Ken, why did you choose the sign business?
You're on mute, Ken.
Wanted out of corporate life, and I was tired of all those staff meetings. I wanted to make a product, put my name on it, whatever name I chose. I wanted to build a team of employees, and I wanted a product that was timeless. And so the sign business, you got to remember, everybody, the sign business has been around for thousands of years. There were sign companies in the time of the ancient Greeks and the ancient Egyptians. There were sign companies in the Middle Ages. There will be sign companies long after we're all gone. It's a necessity of life. Got to have them. If we didn't have street signs and building names and room numbers, we'd have chaos in our society. Okay. So
Perfect.
I wanted
Thank you.
A simple business.
Love it. Thank you, Ken. John Sutton, if you can take yourself off of mute, share with us where you're from, and go ahead with your first question.
Sure. John Sutton from Kalamazoo, Michigan, right between Chicago and Detroit. I'll be completely transparent here to get to the heart of the matter of what concerns me. Just turned 50. My wife has a good job in corporate America where I left. I took a step outside of corporate America, and that was not COVID proof. So that's what has me here. What's different than some of the owners that I see on the call is most of my assets are 401k. So I'd be rolling over a portion. There's a great program to do that. I've only got about 30K in cash. That puts me on the low end of what I've learned so far from some of you guys. So as the breadcrumbs are obviously leading to the $1 million question, and I'll take the periods out so it's all one question. How many months did it take you to turn a profit? How much of the prescribed 30K did it take you to get there? And what would you do different if you were going to start over tomorrow?
All right, that's a big question too. So how much time did it take you to become cash positive? Was 30K working cash or working 30,000 in working capital enough? And if you were to do it all over again, would you do anything different? Let's do reverse order. John Sunderland, we'll let you go first.
I was cash positive right around year one, end of year one, sometime in that time frame. Honestly, I don't remember exactly what I had for working capital, but 30K seems to sound okay. What was the other part of the question?
If you were to do it all over again, would you do anything different?
You know what? I don't know that I would. I mean, I don't have, certainly do not have any regrets about joining Signworld and doing what I did. And I really can't really think of anything that I'd do differently.
Okay, very good. Don?
Cash flow positive, second month. Just don't ask Jack that question because he always one-ups me on that one. 30K, never even bothered with the 30K. So, I mean, we were pretty much chugging along, and I would have marketed my company the day I signed the contract. That's what I would have done different.
Wow. Okay.
Dave.
Yeah, I think cash flow positive was like 6 months. 30K was probably about right. And then if there was something I would do differently, I would engage in a web marketing firm earlier. I tried to manage it myself starting out, and I think you want to focus on selling signs and let somebody else do things rather than trying to build a new competency like web marketing.
Would you do anything different?
No, I just engaged them earlier. I ended up about 6 months in. I did engage a company, and things took off quickly from there. So I would definitely do that right out of the gate.
Perfect. Jack?
I was cash positive, honestly, my first month in business. Sorry, Don. Get my first paycheck at 6 months. The second part of the question.
Working capital was
Capital,
30K enough.
30 is, if you talk to all Signworld owners, the majority of them are going to say that was more than enough. But the worst thing in business you can do is be cash short in your first year. You start playing defense instead of offense. So if you can put a little bit more into it, hoping not to spend it, I'd still recommend that. And what I do different, not be so transactional, constantly looking for the new customer, as much as really leveraging the customers that already believe in you. If you've done business with a customer and they're not giving you more work, getting you to the other contacts at that company, getting you to their friends and family, being consultative and no customers at that end, that's really how to grow the business big.
Perfect. Thank you. Anything to add on that, Ken?
You're on mute, Ken.
I apologize. Well said by everyone. Nothing to add.
Okay, very good. Let's go to our next guest here, David D Martini. Can you take yourself off mute, share with everybody where you're from, and give us your first question?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is David D Martini. I'm based in Park City, Utah. It's just outside of Salt Lake City. So a little bit up in the mountains here. First, thank you all for being here. This is super cool, more intimate than I expected, which is a good thing. And I appreciate you taking the time in your day to speak to us, I guess. I guess my question here that I'm thinking through is along the lines of customer acquisition and ultimately, I guess, lifetime value. You know, the stat I saw was that somewhere around 80% of the average Signworld owners business comes from repeat purchases. I'm curious on what your experience with that has been and what it's been like to find and acquire new customers on a consistent basis. Not sure if that's direct enough or specific enough, but
no, it's one we hear often. It's a great question. So what amount of your business is repeat business, and how did you acquire those customers? We'll start in the middle. Don, can you go first?
We have 70% of our business is repeat. 50% of what's left is referrals from repeat customers, and the other half is from the internet. We treat our customers, the way we want to be treated. That's all about customer service. It's all about servicing that customer, letting them know they're heard of. This is a contracting business. If you ever hired a contractor to work on your house, I know that they always do exactly what they say they're going to do for the exact same price they say they're going to do it for. And if you've had that experience, I want to hire your contractor. So we treat it as a business. We here in this, the owners here are businessmen trying to run a sign company. Our competitors are sign people trying to run a business. It's infinitely more difficult to run a business than it is to run a sign company. So I think that's part of the secret sauce as to why we are successful and our customers stay with us, because they want to deal with business people.
Great, thank you, Don. Dave, what % of your business is repeat, and how did you find those repeat customers?
sorry. I think 60% of my business right now is probably repeat customers. I'd say 50% of those I found through the web. Others found through referrals. I got probably $100,000 for wearing this shirt to a hardware store one day. It really comes from all over the place. Wrap your car when you're driving around. There's a guy I used to play rugby with that I could tell stories, but it would be inappropriate. And I got like a $50,000 job through him because he was outfitting a lab for a new company, right? Referrals and business comes from all over the place.
Very good. Thank you. John?
Probably 75 to 80% of our business is repeat customers. How we originally got them, and I know it's kind of hard to believe, but when you think back 15 or 16 years ago, the internet was nothing like it is now. You still had to be in the yellow pages to be relevant. So, as I started out in that, I mean, that's kind of how we marketed to begin with. But one of the things I did early on too is I made a list of people that I had worked with, had a business relationship with, and then just tried to go through that list and figure out where are these people now, what are they doing, and then prioritized who I thought might be a good fit for my new business and go after them. And that's what I did to get started. Most of our new business is repeat business now, or referrals from existing customers.
Thank you. Jack?
In the end, 80% of my money came from less than 20 customers. You're not going to get big projects from big customers. That just rarely does it happen? Sure, but that's not the norm. What you're probably going to get is a nuisance item from a big customer and chase it upstairs. My Subway account, 200 Subway locations, came from the region, from 1 hour's decal for one location, a $50 project, but not leaving it at that, and really finding out who they were connected to. My Dave & Buster's account started with 2 little restroom signs they needed for one location, but then asking questions. So it's having someone throw you a bone and then leveraging from it. Being strategic.
Very good. Thank you, Jack. So let's move on to our next participant, James Jackson. Can you take yourself off mute and ask your first question, please?
Hi, everyone. This is James from San Jose, California. I have a question. What do you feel the future growth potential for the sign business?
Are you talking from a market perspective or individually from the owner's perspective?
Market perspective.
Okay.
You feel that there's a sufficient drive business need growth?
So Dave, what do you think the market opportunity is for signs in your area and elsewhere?
Sorry, I'm following Ken's lead here. I'll get better at the mute button. So I think that, there's plenty of room in the sign business. In terms of growth of the sign industry, if there's construction going on around you and there's new commercial developments being put in, every one of those places is going to need a sign. We don't do a ton of HOA business just because it's kind of a runaround, but if there's a new housing development going in, there's lots of monument signs and little road signs. And, if they have any shared facilities, there's actually one place I'll say good things about. We've actually done a bunch of their, signs for their pool and signs for their clubhouse and all of that kind of thing. As long as there's construction, there's, plenty of room for there's growing market. And then, there's always just turnover in the existing places, right? So we've put new signs on the same place 3 times for 3 different businesses in the same location, right? So there's always turnover.
Thank you, Dave. John, what do you think the market opportunity is for signs in your market and elsewhere?
I think the market opportunity is great. You kind of have to think about it in just you know, how vast it is with, you know, transportation, you know, retail businesses, service industry businesses, and all sorts of things like that. It's just, you know, we have somebody that's right next door to us. We've been neighbors now for 10 years, and they had a relationship with a sign company for a number of years. We always were friendly with them, said, you know, and stopped by occasionally and everything. And then about a year ago, they came to us wanting us to bid on some new ramps for their trucks. And we did that, and they loved what we put together, and they're one of our new best friends now. And so, you know, even if you don't have that opportunity initially, you can't necessarily give up. Just hang in there, and there's a potential to get new business there too.
Very good. Thank you, John. Don, what do you think the market opportunity is for signs?
You might as well ask the question of what is the market opportunity for formation of new businesses? Because every new business needs a sign. And so that's why this is a business to business environment. At last I checked on the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, new small business growth is what's driving the economy today and will be in the future. Every one of them needs a sign. And as I always like to tell everybody, even if you're going out of business, you need a going out of business sign.
Well said. Thank you, Don. Jack?
You know, it's not just new business. As I said, my largest customer is Subway. And you think once a Subway location is there, they're done. Subway's logo used to be yellow on brown, then changed to yellow on black, then yellow on green. Then they changed the font, then they changed the outline, then they changed the font again. Every 4 years, every one of 45,000 Subway location changes every single sign. Signs change more than people realize. It's a bigger business than you'll ever participate in. You can become the largest sign company in your market. You probably never have more than 1% of it. It's that big. It's bigger than you. The limit of the business is you and your vision of how to take care of more customers, bigger projects, hire staff, and nurture. The limit of the business is you.
Thank you, Jack. Can you go ahead and share your slideshow?
I will in just a minute. I'll have it up in just a minute. There's actually 3 slides that I'm going to show, slideshows. The first one is just showing some of the locations inside and out, so you can see what the facilities look like. The second one is going to go to what is a sign, not only what we can make with the original equipment, but what we can outsource. And then that slideshow goes on to showing unusual signs that you wouldn't even think of. The third slideshow goes to some of our wall of fame, showing the bigger projects Signworld Owners have accomplished. So that'll go on sideline. Ken, what's your thoughts on the sign industry? Because it's been 33 years. Has it changed in how we make signs and what signs are, but the industry is growing even more than ever.
As the population grows, so does the number of businesses grow, so does the need for more signs. Simple as that. So the appetite for signs today is greater than it ever has been. And tomorrow it's going to be even greater. Again, you have to look everywhere. That when you look at just construction, new construction and property management, and companies merging together with a new name and a new logo, and you have to change all their outdoor signs, all their indoor signs, and their whole fleet of vehicles. So the growth is just unbelievable. There's plenty of room for more sign companies, plenty of room. The other factor to look at is how long does it take you to get a sign? So go out there in your own backyard and call 3 or 4 sign companies and ask them how soon they can send a salesman over to your place. Not you to go there, but how soon can they send a salesman over to your place? And most sign companies, most areas that you live in, the response is going to be several days or a week or more. Go ahead.
Perfect. Thank you. Our next participant is Angel. Angel, can you take yourself off mute and go ahead and share where you're from and your first question? On the bottom left is the mute button where you can click to unmute yourself, Angel.
Perhaps they might have to put it in the chat box if they can't get audio.
Good point. We will wait to see if we can see that in the chat box. And if you're able to come off mute, Angel, we'll come back to you. But let's go back again to Brian at the top and start with your second question, Brian. Brian, are you able to take yourself off of mute and ask your next question?
I'm ready. Sorry about that. It was mentioned that, Signworld is business people, running a company versus sign people, developing signs. I guess with Dave on the phone, with overlapping territories or territories that are really close to each other, how do you guys work together? Is it a fruitful relationship, or is it more, is there animosity there? I'm looking at Dave's website and it comes up as bouldersigncompany.org. I'm right in Boulder, he's in Longmont. How does that, do you have any examples of how that works with people that are pretty close to each other, and how do you guys get around working with each other in a fruitful way?
I guess since it's directed to me, I'll answer. So, I would say it's more collaborative than it is competitive. I mean, so in my area, so Bruce is like an hour north of me, Randy's like 30 minutes north of me, Kevin's like 15 minutes southwest of me, caught it in Gun Barrel area. And then there's a couple, some more guys down Golden, Denver area. And, I reach out to them all the time for, hey, where do you guys source this, or who do you get to do something for you, right? So we totally help each other out. Periodically, when I'll see on somebody else's Facebook page, they got a job I didn't get. Well, that's kind of the way it goes. I'm sure it goes both ways. Sometimes over a beer with Kevin, we'll go, hey, did you talk to that guy? And those are typically the jobs that neither one of us wanted. So I don't think other Signworld owner density is really an issue. I mean, there's plenty of other sign companies out there. For instance, if you want to go into Louisville, I will send you work, because I hate going to Louisville because it's not kind of where we go. So, if there's a smaller job there, I'd be happy to send it to you. Now, I'll put a monument sign across the street from you, but if there's plenty of smaller work, I'd be happy to send your way.
Great, thank you, Dave. Let's go to Don Conklin in a very popular market for Signworld owners. Don, how do other owners in Atlanta and you get along? And is there any issues within the Signworld community having neighbors so close to you?
There are 21 other Signworlds in Atlanta, last I checked. There is 6 million people, I think, in Atlanta, last I checked. There's probably 650 other sign companies that aren't Signworld companies in the Atlanta market. I mean, it's just supply and demand, right? I mean, people open businesses where there's demand for product, and there's demand here. I'm friends with all of them. I stop by and visit all of them. When the new ones start up, I make sure they have what they need. Feel like I'm sort of like the godfather here in the Atlanta market, me and Mark Kasem. Yeah, it's very collaborative. And even with the new people start up, we make sure they understand if they want to sell wholesale, if they want wholesale prices before they get their equipment. Be more than glad to produce stuff for them on a wholesale basis. We share subcontractors, we share suppliers. So yeah, it's here's the deal. Every Signworld owner is basically coming from a corporate background, and the rest of the Signworld family, whether you're down the street or across the country, are your corporate family that you are divorcing for the most part, but they're your brethren, and that's how that basically works.
Wonderful, thank you, Don. John?
Yeah, I mean, like Don said, I mean, there's several other Signworld owners in the St. Louis area. Honestly, don't even know how many now. And 2 of them were fairly new within the last 18 months. And, we've opened our arms and helped them in any way we can, as, Don indicated, before they got their equipment, doing some wholesale work for them so they can get some sales going. We also are the one of the few Signworld owners in the area that has bucket trucks, and we do a lot of installation work for other Signworld owners because they don't have trucks, and so we assist them with that. So it is kind of like a family. We have a great working relationship with all the other Signworld owners.
Let me
Thank you,
say
John.
one last thing and that's the Signworld family helps with your national presence. Last year, I believe I wrote checks to 45 different Signworld owners for installing signs for me across the country. So it's a network that's built in as well as the local people.
Thank you, Don. Jack?
While you're based locally and most of your contacts will be local, as Don said, you got projects going to go all across the city, the state, the region, the country. So you're not just leaning on the local market. That's the contact base. In the beginning, a good first month is 10 customers. Mature in business, you might process 50 to 100 products in a month, and a lot of it becomes repeatable business. My closest Signworld to me was 4 miles away, the other side of the freeway. While he was more interested in banks and schools, I was more focused on restaurant and retail. I made things wholesale for him. He made wholesale things for me. So you're going to find different areas of business and types of customers and projects that you want that don't compete with the other Signworld owners, and you're going to become best friends with them.
Great, thank you. John Sutton, can you take yourself off of mute and go ahead with your next question?
Sure, thanks. So probably, Dave, this is closest to you, Don and John. I don't know, or Jack, if you can remember back. I guess just give me your thoughts if you start over today. So market saturation. I know there's a theory that there's always room for good service, and good service always wins. That aside, a concern I have is whether I'm getting into a market that's good or ripe versus oversaturated. So how would you guys recommend operating on the assumption that due to the law of variability, there are great markets and bad markets? How would you advise me to determine whether my market is ripe or oversaturated?
Great question, John. Thank you. So the question is, how do you assess the market opportunity within a certain geography to ensure success long-term? So Dave, when you first joined the sign business, did you make an assessment within your market? What did you find, and what would you suggest to John?
So, I mean, it's going to sound like kind of a wise answer, or wise ass answer, but there's 5 other sign companies in Longmont. Go and visit those sign companies and you'll feel more secure about going into the sign business. I mean, most of them are 1-man or 2-person operations. There's stuff all over the floor. The doors are probably locked if it's a 1-man operation because they're out doing a install and nobody's actually making anything. Sure, they're just pure numbers of businesses is interesting, but it's not necessarily what your competitive landscape looks like. I would kind of talk to, go out and just visit some sign companies, walk in and ask about a banner, and just kind of look around and see if they look organized or see if it looks like that's somebody you can beat. I mean, it is a competitive world out there.
Thank you, Dave. John Sunderland, how would you suggest John assess his market, and how did you go about that when you decided to join the sign business?
Well, I always hate to give Ken too much credit, but I'll do so here anyway. I remember in one of my conversations with Ken 16 years ago, I kind of asked the same thing in a way, saying, isn't there an awful lot of competition, and how can I be successful here? And again, the internet wasn't what it was, so we still had phone books that we used. And Ken says, do you have a Yellow Pages? I said, yes, I do. And he goes, open it up and look at under signs and see what there is. And so I did, and I opened it up, and I mean, there were, probably 50 plus pages of sign companies. And I immediately said, oh, wow, that's a lot of competition. Ken says, well, look at the rest of the phone book. That's your opportunity. And I mean, it's really true. I mean, there is competition. There's a lot of competition, not necessarily good competition. And as Dave said, I would recommend going and visiting some places. I did that. And I was kind of astounded at what I found. And I thought, man, if, I could really make a difference here, and you can differentiate yourself by service.
Love that. And love the phone book analogy. I've heard that one too. It's a great perspective there. Don, how would you assess your markets for another sign company? And what did you do when you started to do that type of assessment?
I mean, it really is how you perform in the marketplace, and what you do. A wise Signworld owner told me 10 years ago, and says there's 3 secrets to this game. It says 1 is answer the phone, 2 is answer the phone, and 3 is answer the phone. Because if you pick up the phone and call 10 sign companies, probably maybe 2, maybe 3 might answer the phone. And the other ones will put you through to an auto attendant or something else like that. So to me, it's, hit them while they're hot. Also reminds me of a story of 2 guys camping in the woods, and they run across a bear. One guy puts his backpack down and puts on his sneakers. His friend looks at him and says, "You'll never outrun that bear." He says, "I don't have to outrun the bear. I just got to outrun you." And that's basically what you're doing, outrunning your competition, and pretty much they're easy to outrun. That's why there's no concentration in this marketplace. Signarama, Fast Signs, Signs by Tomorrow, all the brands, they might have less than 10% of the total sign market. The sign market is so splintered that you really don't need, to have the big behemoth. It's just how you personally perform. You and your company personally perform.
Thank you, Don. Jack?
As Don mentioned, the franchises have 9% of the population. Independents have 90%. Signworld has 1.5%. Most sign companies are owned by a former sign maker who grew up in the back room as a doer, not a planner. Used to his boss saying, "When you're done with that one, let me know and I'll give you the next job. When you're done with that one, let me give you the next one." That means they're single task focused. That means if they're busy with the project, their head's in the sand. They don't show up for the appointment on time. They don't deliver the quote effectively and efficiently. They don't deliver the project on schedule, on budget. So you doing your job, running the business as a business person, makes you an anomaly in your market. There's more business than you'll ever have a chance to get to. Do the surveys, show up for the appointments, and you'll be amazed.
Thank you, Jack. David D. Martini. Sorry, go ahead.
I'd like to add to that. We're no different than the plumbers and the electricians and the refrigerator repairmen. As you all know, 9 out of 10 plumbers, 9 out of 10 electricians are one guy in a truck. But 1 out of 10 drives a Mercedes, and he has 9 plumbers and 9 trucks working for him. The question is, which one do you want to be? Which one do you want to be?
Thank you. David D. Martini, if you can take yourself off mute, go ahead with your second question, please.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. I'm curious about, as you were getting going, thinking back to that first year or two, what was the biggest surprise or biggest unforeseen challenge that you saw? And I guess, what did it take to overcome that?
Great question. So John Sutherland, when you started your business, what was your biggest challenge in your first year that was unforeseen, and how did you overcome it?
Boy, it's a long time ago. I got to think about that a little bit.
Should we come back to you and go to Dave first?
Yeah.
One of our newer owners.
Let me think about that a little bit.
Sure, Dave.
Sure, the paint's a little fresher for me. So it took me 3 attempts to get my first employee, who is now still with me almost 4 years later. I hired a guy that was, had like 20 years in the business, but he knew one way to do things. And after about 5 weeks, he figured out he couldn't learn how to use the new equipment, and he resigned. I hired another kid who had a little bit of experience, and was kind of coming around, and then had some family issues, and so he resigned as well. And now I've got Dan, and who does installs, builds. He's not super strong on design, but that's okay. We backfilled that. And it's just, you know, it's really, I think you got to find the right fit for that first employee.
Thank you, Dave. Don, you want to go ahead and share what you felt was your first year biggest challenge and how you overcame that?
Sure. Since I've never ran a company of any type before, I'll give the speech that if you open up a new business, if you've never opened up a business before, it will be 2 years of sheer hell. So just buckle up, and the guys can shake their head around the table. And it's not that I didn't have fun, and it's not that I lost money. It's that I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't know the business. I didn't know the market. I don't care if you're opening up a sign company, a burger joint, or a retail spot. If you're opening up something new for the first 2 years, it's going to be 2 years of hell before you learn the business. Okay. So it's the fear of not knowing what you don't know. And you have to rely on other people that you pick up that are in the industry, your employees, your installers, your subs, that they know what they're doing, and you got to trust them from that standpoint. But yeah, it was basically the fear of the unknown. Now, I will tell you that Teresa and I were never going to fail. So it wasn't like, oh my God, this business is going to fold. It was like, when do we get through all this and start having fun being business owners? And that was about 2 years of hell.
Thank you, Don. John, were you able to come up with?
Yeah,
thinking back?
I think I mentioned earlier how I had made a list of people and kind of targeted those people going after business. And one of the things that I really probably didn't think of enough originally was the fact that I really kind of got my feet underneath me in like September was my first really full month in business. And things went well, you know, better than I expected. October was better than September. And I thought, man, everything's going along really smoothly here. And then all of a sudden, you know, nothing. And November was worse than my first month of September. December was worse than November. And I'm thinking, what did I get myself into? And it wasn't until I kind of went back and kind of thought about things and what happened. And I got myself, because of the customers that I were going after, I got myself caught in a budgeting process. Initially in September and October, they had money they wanted to spend and they were willing to spend it. And then in November and December, they were, leave me alone. I've got to figure out and get my budget approved for the next year. So, looking back, I probably would have broadened my appeal to more people to try and get some different type of business from different people than I did originally.
Very good. Jack?
I think your biggest weakness is going to be your biggest challenge. If you haven't learned QuickBooks and understand P&L statement for a small business, you can do that. If you haven't hired staff before, you got to figure out how to do that. If you haven't managed products before, you got to do that. That's why you're joining an organization, where you're trying not to do it solo. Why you're trying not to recreate the wheel. You're buying into a system, and it's a pure network of other owners that are willing to help you that allows it to be successful, even though you do have those inadequacies.
Very good. Ken, in your 33 years, you've seen a lot of owners in their first year. What do you think was their biggest challenge that you see as most common? Ken, you're on mute still.
Again, to repeat what Jack said, your biggest challenge is going to be your biggest weakness, especially when it comes to the hiring, training, leading, and motivating employees. And maybe this is a good time to mention it, that this is a manufacturing business. And like almost all manufacturing businesses, your ratio of employees to gross sales and net profit is very low compared to all those other franchises that you may be looking at out there that are service businesses. So, for example, when Don Conklin gets ready to sell his business, and let's just make up a small number. Let's just say it sells for $2 million. Well, a $2 million Signworld business or manufacturing business, I got it, Don, but I'm trying to give a simple example here. a $2 million manufacturing business, a $2 million sign world, you only need, the benchmark is like 14 employees. But if you have a $2 million franchise that's a service business, you're looking at over 100 employees. Are you prepared to do that, everybody? Is that your background? Is that your background? Are you used to doing that? Because between now and when you retire, if you're going to end up with 100 employees, that means you're going to hire 400 people between now and then. Is that you? Are you ready for that? Are you prepared for that? Are you experienced at doing that? So that's going to be what I think the biggest challenge to most people is people. And it's, again, the beauty of our business is very few employees, very few customers to make a very, very good living. To make $200,000 a year net cash flow to the owner, you really only need 4 employees. To make that kind of money in any other franchise that you're looking at, you probably need 20 employees. Go ahead, Gene.
Great perspective. Thank you, Ken. We'll go with our last question with James Jackson. If you can take yourself off of mute and go ahead with your last question today.
I think I'm correct. I've already asked my question from San Jose.
Okay, very good. Brian, John, or David, do either of you have a one parting question you'd like to ask before we close for today?
This is Brian. I got a quick question that should be pretty quick to go around. I'm just trying to get perspective of both time and dollars, a big job versus a small job. So what's the kind of revenue or revenue of a big job versus a small job, and then time commitment for each of those?
Very good. Don, would you like to go ahead with that one first? You do a lot of big jobs.
Yeah, I did a $25 job today. And for the same customer, I'm doing and that took me about 15 minutes to set up and print. And for the same customer, I'm doing a $125,000 job that'll take me about probably about 6 weeks to fabricate and install.
Total number of hours in that project, when you say 6 weeks?
Yeah, probably between everything going on, I would say probably about 30 to 40 man hours.
Okay, very good. John, smallest job, biggest job, time commitment, dollars?
You know, as Don mentioned, we'll do some small jobs, but they're for good customers. Typically, if somebody comes in, I mean, we won't do anything for less than $150. We'll give them $150 worth of whatever they want, but to make it even worth our time to do anything, it has to be at least $150. Again, with the exception of we've got existing customers that we'll do some small things for just because of the relationship we have with them. You know, we recently did a monument sign with a double-sided LED message board. You know, I believe it ended up being about a $45,000 job. And, you know, all in, the man hours that we had into it was probably not more than 20 to 25 man hours. And it was a very high profit job.
Very good, thank you. Dave, small job, big job, dollars and time spent.
Yeah, we try to avoid smaller jobs unless the company, you know, ends in bank or school or university or hospital. You know, because those can lead into other things. But, you know, like there's a lot of like little realtors and things like that we try to avoid if possible. Right now we're finishing up a $110,000 job. We'll finish that at the end of the month, and we've probably got 4 man weeks of printing, or actually 8 person weeks of printing and installation on that.
Very good, thank you. Jack?
You're billing for time, materials, and for the talent you have. So the more you can push out, the more effective it is. You can have small jobs, big jobs, doing only the small jobs for those strategic customers.
Very good. Thank you. Well, we're right at the top of the hour. We'll go ahead and close for today. First off, thank you so much to our owners, Don, Dave, and John, for taking time out of your day to participate. We really appreciate you. Our participants, Brian, John, David, and James, thanks for participating today. Hopefully you got a lot of questions answered today, and we look forward to future conversations with you to see if Signworld is the right fit for the next chapter in your life. With that, we'll go ahead and close out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye,
Have a good
everybody.
day, all.